The last workbook lesson that we did was workbook lesson 16, I have no neutral thoughts. And today we are on to workbook lesson 17, I see no neutral things. I see no neutral things. This idea is another step in the direction of identifying cause and effect as it really operates in the world. You see no neutral things because you have no neutral thoughts. It is always the thought that comes first, despite the temptation to believe that it is the other way around. That is not the way the world thinks, but you must learn that it is the way you think. If it were not so, perception would have no cause and would itself be the cause of reality. In view of its highly variable nature, this is hardly likely. In applying today's idea, say to yourself, with eyes open, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. Then look about you, resting your glance on each thing you note long enough to say, I do not see a neutral blank because my thoughts about blank are not neutral. For example, you might say, I do not see a neutral wall because my thoughts about walls are not neutral. I do not see a neutral body because my thoughts about bodies are not neutral. As usual, it is essential to make no distinctions between what you believe to be animate or inanimate, pleasant or unpleasant. Regardless of what you may believe, you do not see anything that is really alive or really joyous. That is because you are unaware as yet of any thought that is really true and therefore really happy. 3 or 4 specific practice periods are recommended, and no less than 3 are required for maximum benefit, even if you experience resistance. However, if you do, the length of the practice period may be reduced to less than the minute or so that is otherwise recommended. All right, so I see no neutral things. And remember that yesterday's lesson was I have no neutral thoughts. So, and Jesus is saying, I have no neutral thoughts. I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. And he says the thought comes first. Let's read the first paragraph again. This idea is another step in the direction of identifying cause and effect as it really operates in the world. You see no neutral things because you have no neutral thoughts. It is always the thought that comes first, despite the temptation to believe that it is the other way around. So he uses the word temptation here. We are tempted to believe that our thoughts are influenced by what we see versus the other way around. That what we see depends on our thoughts. So, for example, if we, let's use the example of a wall that Jesus brings in, right? So he says, I do not see a neutral wall because my thoughts about walls are not neutral. We have our ideas, our set ideas, or whatever ideas may be about walls. And then when we see a wall, all of those ideas get projected onto the wall. But the wall itself is not, the wall then becomes not a neutral thing in our mind. For example, for some of us, a wall symbolizes a barrier. A wall symbolizes something that's coming between me and someone else. So a wall maybe has a negative connotation. This is just one example. A wall maybe has a negative connotation in our mind. So when we see a wall, on some level, we may not be completely aware of it, but we have that idea of, oh, the wall is a separation. The wall is a divider. The wall is a block. Other people might see a wall, though, and for them, it's a positive connotation. Yeah, there should be divisions between people. A house needs walls, right? And to live in a house, you have to have walls. And so, and a wall is a protective device. So it everything depends on the thoughts that you bring to it. That's how you will see that thing. Now, it gets more, a wall might not even be the best. This really goes more for people. When you see a person, for example, you may have thoughts about what that person is. You may have some kind of past history with that person, and you tend to, in your mind, paint that person in a negative light. Whereas another person, who is that person's friend and knows that person in a different way, sees that person differently. So Jesus is getting at the idea that things start first in our minds and get projected out by the mind onto things. And so we don't really see the thing in itself. We see our own projected thoughts onto the world. And Jesus says at the end, regardless of what you may believe, you do not see anything that is really alive or really joyous. That is because you are unaware as yet of any thought that is really true and therefore really happy. And what Jesus is saying there is that because we have not yet aligned our minds completely with Spirit or with the Holy Spirit, which is the spirit of joy and the spirit of happiness, it's really the same thing. We do not see anything in this world joyfully. We see basically our egoic projections onto things. But we do not see the light of Spirit in everything yet. Jesus is bringing us to that place. So I see no neutral things. This is another step in the direction that Jesus is leading us. Basically, he's leading us out of hell. That's what the whole course is. He's leading us out of fear, out of hell, the fear that we made, the hell that we made, and that we can undo. Undoing is another way of saying unmaking. Okay, so we can undo what we have made because there is a way to undo it. And Jesus, who again is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, is presenting a curriculum that is designed to lead those who truly want to be led out of their fear, out of their judgment, out of their anger, out of their upset, out of their grievances, etc., back to the love and the joy that they truly are. So, good on you for taking this journey. Stay with it. These initial lessons, once again, are can be a little strange. They seem strange. They seem a little bit off-putting, maybe unbelievable, hard to believe. But Jesus says, just go with it, and you will understand as you go along. You're going to see how this all works after a while here. Most people don't get it right away. It takes a little time. And it's good to look at this in terms of it's a journey and it's a process. And ultimately it's a journey back to the place you never left, but you can't see that until you get there. Anyway, I want to just say one thing from yesterday. Robert Perry, in his book, this book, which is A Course in Miracles based on the original handwritten notes of Helen Schuckman. On lesson 15, there's this thing about where Jesus says, you will begin to understand it when you have seen little edges of light around the familiar objects that you see about you now. That is the beginning of real vision. Here's Robert Perry's note. Ken Wapnick wrote that this reference to light episodes, and then the next paragraph says, as we go along, you may have many light episodes, quote unquote, light episodes. They can take many different forms, some of them quite unexpected. Do not be afraid of them. So Robert Perry's note is, Ken Wapnick wrote that this reference to light episodes and the admonition later in the paragraph to not fear them was put in by Jesus to alleviate the anxiety of Cal Hatcher, a colleague of Bill and Helen's. Ken explained that before the scribing of the course began, Cal had asked to speak to Bill about the visions of light Cal had been having, which he found frightening. Then once the scribing began, Bill told Cal about the course, and Cal was immediately interested. As a result, the two of them would often meet in Bill's office early in the morning to go over the latest notes. So this apparently was Jesus putting this in there for Cal's sake, which is why we shouldn't take it too seriously, because it was initially for Cal. Now, everything in the course that was left in the course was thought to be really for everyone. So it's not correct to say it was only for Cal, but it was understood to be for everyone. But my point was, if you don't see light around objects, doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, right? So anyway, Then Robert Perry has another note. Jesus is saying that light episodes symbolize true perception and are a sign that true perception is coming. In other words, seeing light around familiar objects is not true perception. Rather, it is a visual symbol of the non-visual light that we will eventually see in true perception. So these light episodes are just precursors, right? They're kind of signs along the way, milestones that show you that you're on the right path, but they are not the thing in itself. True perception, when we have really arrived at the place of true perception, Jesus says that we're ready for the real world, and then the real world lasts just a moment, and then we transcend back, we go back home to God. God takes the last step, so to speak, and brings us home back to God, where we merge back into God. Anyway, that's it for today. And I'm going to do a video right now. I'm going to finish the video I was doing the other day. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.